Singing Dutchman Productions. Hello and welcome to Doug's Front Porch, a podcast where I get to sit down with friends old and new and have honest conversations. Today I welcome Angela Harding onto the Front Porch, a former colleague, we'll talk about that, but also someone that I've known for quite a while, and I can't wait to have this conversation with you, Ange. Welcome to the Front Porch.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
All right, I am too. I really am. Let me start with this question. I always ask all of my guests this. Set the stage for us. Tell us about where Ange grew up. What kind of childhood did you have? What were you into? Were you an athlete? Were you a music kid? What was little Ange like?
That's a really great question. Little Ange grew up in rural Ohio. My dad was a farmer slash truck driver in the off season, and my mom worked for the state of Ohio in government. And so when I was young, I was an only child. My dad was very adamant that he was going to teach me all of the things, mechanical and tools. And so I was what you would call a tomboy back in those days. My dream actually, when I was about 10, was to work at a gas station. Because, at a young age, I recognized that there were only gentlemen pumping gas and there were never any girls pumping gas. So I always kind of was intrigued about breaking the norms and following a pathway that wasn't necessarily set out for young girls like me. But I grew up in Ohio. In my school years, I was athletic. I played volleyball, basketball, and track, and went on to college then to play basketball before moving here.
Yeah. This is going to be a lead-in question for later on in our discussion, but you mentioned that your mom was in Ohio, worked for the government of the state of Ohio. What did she do?
She worked for, at that time, it was called Employment Services. People would now refer to it as maybe like the unemployment office. And so she worked helping people find jobs and then helping them if they lost their jobs.
Okay. All right. So I've known you for the last, geez, I don't know. I was trying to think about how long I've known you. It's quite a number of years now. So I've always known you here in central Pennsylvania. I never got to know Ohio. And in fact, I didn't even know you were from Ohio. That was a cool little fact to learn. But what I know about you is that I've known you here in Clinton County and in central Pennsylvania. At one point you were working for the United Way as the director for Clinton County. Then you moved and came to the school district where I teach, and you worked in KCSD, Keystone Central. And then we'll talk later about how now you were an elected official for the county. You also have served as president for the local Lock Haven Kiwanis group. So one question that right off the bat, when I look at that resume that you've built is, according to Ange, where does this idea of service and community come from?
That's my $1 million question, Doug. I really, over the years, have tried to be introspective and figure that out. It just seems as though, in my mind, it is some sort of genetic chromosome makeup that I have always been attracted to positions that are community oriented and giving back and trying to solve issues within and for the common good of the community that I live in. So I really don't have the right answer. I don't think it's not something that I've purposely set out to do. It's just kind of the direction that I've instinctively gone.
Okay. So being someone that's from the outside and having been so instrumental in building community here in your adopted home, did you feel connected to this place, or was it one of those slow process? Like, I'm an outsider too to central Pennsylvania, and I know that at least from my perspective, you're never from here, no matter how long you live here. That's been my experience. But I also wasn't in positions of leadership or, the head of organizations that are so community based like you were and are. Have you had a different experience in feeling connected to this community than I have?
I'm not sure. And I will say that I've been here longer than I was actually in Ohio. So I feel like I'm an official townie now. Um, but I think I came here very young. So I was under 20 when I moved to Clinton County, Pennsylvania. And I started my career out here in the community because of not being from here and not having any connections, if you will, in a small community. You know how those things work. I worked through a summer program through CareerLink. It's like job training partnership, and they placed me at City Hall in Lock Haven for the summer. And so that was really the onset of me sort of like making connections and learning about a network of people. And then that sort of trickled out into other opportunities. Then you meet other people. And so I think, looking for opportunities, meeting people and networking and sort of learning how those systems work in the community is sort of what led me to where I'm at today.
Have you always been an extrovert like that and willing to, go shake a stranger's hand?
Yeah, like 7:30 to 6:30 p.m. usually. I find myself to be extremely extroverted, and hardcore career oriented, but then I'm one of those people that's super extroverted, but then I have that introverted side to me where I just sort of like hole up and want to do my own thing and be alone. And yeah, and I would argue too, not to go backwards, but you are hugely impactful in our community too, because you have affected so many students through the work that you do. And so don't ever negate the fact that you play a huge role in this community
Well,
too.
I appreciate hearing that. I appreciate hearing that. But I want to turn our conversation to the hat that you currently wear, because I
Mhm.
find it absolutely fascinating. And I want to learn some things from you today. So, you are currently one of the three county commissioners for Clinton County, Pennsylvania. Let me ask you this question right off the bat. Why did you want to run for that position?
Great question. I've answered this a lot. Back in 2002, I went through a program in our community called Leadership Clinton County. And Leadership Clinton County, as you probably know, but for your listeners, is like a 9-month leadership program within the community that you live that sort of just teaches you all these different things about the community. And so there's Industry Day and Government Day and Social Services Day and Media Day. And so once a month, we would go to these different places in the community and learn all about what was going on in that realm. And I'll never forget at the end and towards graduation of Leadership Clinton County, this was back in 2002, we were given these little notebooks. And the director at the time, her name was April Henry, she said, I'd like for you guys to write down your 5-year goal, 10-year goal, and 15-year goal. My 10-year goal was to become the first female commissioner in Clinton County. It took me 17 years, but I had decided in 2002 that I had an interest in running for a county leadership position.
What was it about that experience that said this is something I want to do?
I think it was twofold. I think that I was really interested and enamored in the ability to have impactful change in the county in its entirety. And kind of going back to wanting to pump gas, it was because at that point there had never been a female in our community that had held that role.
Yeah. So you were elected in 2020. What was that we right so you get you achieve this goal, this dream that you had, and you get elected as county commissioner, and we
Mhm.
go right into COVID. what
Yeah.
was what was that experience like? Because I'm sure it wasn't what none of us were expecting it, of course, and no one knew what it was going to be like. But that had to be a very baptism by fire, maybe, as cliche as that sounds. What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was definitely not awesome. So getting elected, really excited. Then yeah, March 2020 hits, and I will say that the same year that COVID hit, I was nominated in the state as the Rural Health Legislator of the Year. And one of the reasons, and I don't mean to come on your show and propagate myself, but the reason I bring that up is because when COVID hit, I worked with some other local leaders in our community to put together basically emergency calls. And so once a week, all the state and federal legislators that represent our community, the city manager, Greg Wilson, myself, my fellow commissioners, the hospitals, and all of these EMTs, the local ambulance, all these folks that really had a vested interest and had responsibilities regarding COVID all came together on a Zoom call once a week during the pandemic to really discuss what was going on, our preventative methods, like what were the new rules coming out, what did we have to do. So you're right, it was a baptism by fire, but I really, truly, in the bottom of my heart, believe that I was in the right place at the right time to sort of take the lead on that and pull everyone together. So I know it may sound arrogant to your listeners, but I feel like I was in the perfect place, the perfect time.
Well, it's probably true. That's no arrogance there. But I want to backtrack just a little bit. You decide to, because this is something I've never run for office for anything. When you make that decision, I'm doing this, and you fill out the paperwork. What does that look like then to run a campaign at the county level? We're not talking state, but at the county level. What's that system like and process?
Yeah, it's not too hard. I mean, you need to have $100 and then you need to go out and get signatures. And so you really can't file your paperwork until you have 100 people from the party that you're registered in sign a petition basically that says, yes, I want to make sure this person gets on the ballot. And so a lot of the preliminary work behind that, which started in 2019, because that was actually the election year. And so in January 2019, just hit the ground running with getting my petition signed, trying to track down, meet people, talk to them about who I was. Then you go file the paperwork, and then you spend the rest of the spring until that primary in May convincing people that you deserve their vote and going out and knocking on doors. That's probably the hardest part, I would say, of running a campaign is getting out there and just cold calling. Basically, they call that in sales, and knocking on doors and introducing yourself to people. Because I was so inexperienced, I was knocking on some doors that weren't necessarily open to my campaign. And so I've got some broad shoulders through that process and learned a lot. And then as things got going, and I made it through the primary and basically redo for November, doing the same stuff, going to events and trying to raise a little bit of money so you can run ads and do things like that.
Is I mean, I know that I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, but I want to ask it anyway. Is it tiring?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty tiring. It's pretty tiring and emotionally and physically. I mean, to do it right. I mean, I didn't have necessarily, and I'm not speaking disparagingly against anyone else who's ever run for office, but name recognition wasn't something that I was necessarily bringing to the table. So I feel like I might have had to put in a little extra time to get out there and make sure that people knew who I was. I had had a variety of careers. I had waited tables and, worked for John Lopez for years and worked in many different facets of the community, but still there were elements of it that I was missing that I needed to make sure that I covered.
Well, as much as I hate to say it, you also did have a strike against you. I think to a certain extent, in part of our community, being a woman running for this position too. That there had to be some pushback from people, I'm sure, on some level.
There was a little bit of pushback. It wasn't really to my face, if you will. But with that being said, there's also an organization in our community that works diligently to help women get elected. And so I was able to rely on them to do some of that work too, to sort of get out there, knock on doors, and have those conversations to help propel me up.
Okay, so it's now Civics Class 101, and just to help our audience out, what is a county commissioner? Like, what's your elevator pitch for your job?
Yeah, a county commissioner is one of three. So in the state of Pennsylvania, there are two options for county government. One is a commissioner setup, which is three commissioners per county. It's usually a minority and a majority base, meaning there's two of one party, one of the other. Those three commissioners are responsible for basically all functions within county government, primarily the budget, but they oversee all departments. And then they also partner with the courts. And so a lot of people misinterpret the fact that the court system in Clinton County is actually under the roof of county commissioners. And to some extent, it is when it comes to budget and expenses and payroll. That most, if not all, aside from a handful of court employees, are county employees. But like probation and domestic relations and the courthouse staff, if they're not under another elected official, they are the judge's supervision. And so, yeah.
How much of a learning curve did you have going into this job? Like once you got in, there had to be stuff that, I mean, you like that has to be challenging and daunting to say, okay, I now was elected. A percentage of the population put their trust in me to run this county, and I don't know what the budget is for Clinton County, but I'm sure it's multi-million-dollar budget. And here you are, and all of a sudden you're new to the game. You're rookie year, so to speak. How that had to be daunting, I guess, or scary maybe to a certain extent. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. I wouldn't say scary, but intimidating for sure. And actually in 2019, as I was running for office, I went to a lot of the public meetings. And so I would go to the meetings that the commissioners were having, all the public ones that were open to the public, like, and I would even go to budget meetings so that I could sort of get my feet underneath me about what they were talking about and how things worked. I might as well have thrown that all out the door though, because COVID hit. And so that, that didn't really, it didn't help as much as I thought it would. It at least gave me some insight as to how the meetings were run anyway. But I will say this, Doug, I'm learning every day still. I feel a lot more confident today than I did 7 years ago, the first time I got elected and it was in my first year. But I really don't feel like anyone who's in office or in a service position is truly doing their job if they're not learning something all the time. So I'm asking a lot of questions and trying to learn constantly.
And this is not to disparage any of the other county commissioners, but I have an honest question. As a team of three, is
Mhm.
it truly like you? I guess you would have to approach this entire job from the aspect of a team, not an individual. Or am I wrong in that?
No, that's the funny thing about county politics is that it's so polarized in our country, and I know that you and I don't want to get into that, but to bring it back down to a county level, uh, county government is not about party. It's really not. It might be in May and in November when you go make your selections, but when it comes to talking about the budget and talking about crises that might be happening or talking about economic development, really it's a conversation that's had to talk about what is the best for our community. And when you think about those types of things, there's really no partisan lines, right? Because you're trying to do the best for the most amount of people in the community. Now, I will say each of the commissioners, so once we get elected, there are a numerous amount of boards and authorities that commissioners must sit on throughout the community. And so the way it's kind of broken up to become more individualized is that, I have my list of boards and authorities that I serve on. My fellow commissioners have their list that they serve on. And so I become the direct connect for those boards and authorities. That doesn't mean that I don't keep the other commissioners informed about things that are going on because, we'll be out in the community having dinner or doing whatever, and somebody might come up and be like, hey, I heard XYZ on the 1, 2, 3. And so you want to have a little bit of information so that you can speak intelligently about it. And then typically you'll refer them to, it'd be great if you contacted Commissioner Russo or Commissioner Snyder about that because that's their board. But there's some individuality in each of us really in both terms, but in this term specifically, we each kind of have our areas that we have interest in. And so we kind of take the lead in those areas. And then the other two just play a supportive role and keeping up to date with what's going on and helping any way we can.
It was one of the questions I had written down, and we just kind of like brushed it. But I'm going to ask it anyway. I was going to ask you, what is it like doing the job that you're doing at this current time in our history when, as everybody listening to the show knows, we're struggling as a country politically. It's difficult for some families to have conversations about anything politics related, and here you are in the spotlight of county politics, at least. Is any of that outside noise, does it make its way into your world? I would imagine it does, but maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
I mean, within the work that I do for the county, no, because as I mentioned, it's really not a partisan job. Um, I will say personally, however, due to me being the minority commissioner, what I get probably more than anything is from the outside. And so those partisan hacks that are out in our community that hear like I'm doing this or I'm working on this or I say this or I do this or I show up to this, whatever that looks like, oftentimes we'll have not the nicest things to say. And I think what's really frustrating for me and probably for a lot of people in this world is that they don't know me. They don't know what I stand for. They're not paying attention to the work that I'm doing and the dedication that I have to trying to do the best I can for every single person. And so that part can get a little defeating sometimes, but I'll tell you, my armor has gotten thicker and thicker each year.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure it would have to, right? Um, I'm going to ask you this question too. I mean, most Americans, if they follow anything politics wise, it's at the national level because that's what's in our face all the time. But I
Mhm.
want you right now to our audience make the case for why local government is actually what everybody should be paying attention to.
Yeah, because that's local government is what's affecting you on a day-to-day basis. And so your property taxes and your um those local taxes that you pay, the people that are running your government are the people that are providing services in your community. That's your tax assessment, that's your treasurer's office, that's your children and youth department and your courts and all those services that are providing the services in your local community. And really that's kind of where the real work is done. I can't tell you how many times since I've been elected that the state will send down a mandate to one of our departments and then expect us to figure out a way to pay for it, right? And so you're getting mandates from the state to do XYZ, and now we've got to figure out in our budget how we're gonna make that work within our budget. Keep taxes down and be cognizant of the median income in Clinton County without overtaxing people. And we're socioeconomically we have our struggles. I mean, we're holding steady, right? And so I think that I wish people would pay attention to local politics, and we don't even have to talk about county government. That's in your worlds, that's school board, that's your township supervisors, that's your borough councils, and county government in its own right. So local government is hugely important, and it's really what affects people's day-to-day lives. And federal government, yeah, we all pay our federal taxes, but a lot of those issues and a lot of that propaganda coming from all spectrums of federal government isn't really what's keeping the wheels turning within the communities that you live in.
Philosophical question for you. I'm sure you've had to make difficult votes in your career as a county commissioner. How do you how do you approach making a difficult vote?
I make sure that I've done my research, probably overabundantly done my research, asked as many questions as I could possibly ask, and then typically, if I'm going to vote no, I prepare a statement so that I explain my no vote during the public meeting as to why I voted no, and give my reasoning behind it, so that if I am judged for that vote, at least people know where it came from.
And you're able to sleep then at night after the vote, I would hope.
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Last two. I have two questions yet about this current part of your life. One, now that you've been doing this for a couple of years, how has it changed you?
Well, I mentioned earlier about my armor becoming thicker, right? So I think I've definitely learned to um, let stuff bounce off, right? And not let the opinions of others or the heckling get to me, because I know that first of all I signed up for this, right? And that's
Right.
all part of it. And so that piece I've gotten better at, and I've been able to sort of just shake it off. If I think that there's a concern that I should pay attention to, obviously I do. Another way that it's changed me, I think, is that I've learned how to, and I'm going to choose my words carefully here, but I've learned how to be a better negotiator.
Okay.
And whether that's dealing with another municipality or something that we're trying to get accomplished, like what's the best way to maneuver through this to get to the end goal, and being negotiable on my principles or my values or how I think we need to get there, and trying to meet that other party or that other group, halfway, and being more negotiable.
Yeah. All right. What's and you can answer these in whichever order you want to, but I want you to tell me one thing that you absolutely love about your job and one thing that is difficult about your job.
One thing I absolutely love about my job is the fact that no 2 days are the same.
Okay.
I love that. And one thing that's difficult about my job is, and this is a cliche also, but government moves slow. And so trying to accomplish things, and trying to make positive change in the community or in the county sometimes works at a snail's pace.
Yeah, and that has to be well, I've seen it at the local at school board level as well. It, that is tough, and trying to stay the course, hoping that eventually you
Mhm.
know that this investment you're making, whatever it is, whether it's time or financial, that there is going to be a payout at some point. We just might not see it right away. And we live in an era, of course, of instant gratification, and that is difficult.
Right.
That would be hard.
Well, and in
Um,
the meantime, after you've started that project or after you're trying to get that accomplished, 10, 15 other things are back behind it in the waiting line. You know what I mean? So you just keep piling on and trying to keep sight of, accomplishing this task, that task. So yeah, it can be a little much sometimes.
I said that there were no more questions about this, but this kind of came to my mind as we were sitting here having this conversation. As being one of the leaders of the county, do you also see yourself as a cheerleader for the county as well?
Um, yes, I do. I think that a realistic cheerleader.
Right.
Yeah, I think that I am a cheerleader. I love this county. I think it's I think it's not just one, but it is the most beautiful county in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm proud to live here. As you know, I raised my son here. I've been here for 34 years. So I love this community and I am a cheerleader for this community. At the same time, sometimes that you can love where you live and still be a critic of it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so I think, and with you bringing that up, I think what one of the parts of being a cheerleader is to, you're cheering on the team, and so it's not just cheering on the county itself, but while staying in your lane, trying to partner with the school district, partner with the municipalities, and trying to get everybody sort of on the same team so we can all be cheerleaders and cheering for the same game.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right, enough talking about that aspect of your life. That there's one little thing I did want to talk about that I thought about the other day when I was putting all of this conversation together was that, and we just kind of like you brought up the perfect transition. Your son. I had Ange's son Vaughn in high school. But the aspect that I want to talk about is he was a multi sport athlete, star athlete at Central Mountain, and then graduated and went on to Penn State. And rose to a prominent role on the Penn State football team, which, I mean, for anybody that's listening to this podcast, most likely when you say Penn State, you think of football. And of course, the story tradition of Penn State football. But your son was there at a very, at a difficult time for Penn State. But what was that like being the mom of your son who is had seen tons of success in high school and then gets to this level that kids dream of getting to. And correct me if I'm wrong, he would make it to the level of, he was one of the captains of the team, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So what was that? I'm sure Vaughn's been asked all those questions tons of times, but I want to hear about it, what it was like from a parent's perspective to see that and experience what you experienced during those years that your son was playing football at Penn State.
Yeah, that was 4 years of constant anxiety. I believe I probably should have been on blood pressure medicine. It was, for me anyway, an immense amount of pride, like through the roof, right? I mean, mind blowing pride, but at the same time, as a mom, just continual worry. Just worrying about him being able to make it, worrying about him getting hurt, worrying about him succeeding, worrying about his grades, worrying about all of those things, and that's something that I probably should have put on my I've gotten better at list. But it was a whirlwind, to be honest with you, and something that I am so grateful and thankful for. And I've actually told Vaughn a few times in his adult life that I got to experience things because of him and his risk and his like desire to try something outside of his comfort zone, because he could have went to a smaller school and done just fine, right? And he got the opportunity, and he went to Penn State as a run-on for Bill O'Brien, and because of him, his family got to experience some pretty amazing things, and I'll be indebted to him for that for forever.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that if anyone asked me to describe your son, I would always go to the same word as a descriptor. I would say driven. I mean, that's what he was like in high school, and I saw it then play out through his college career. And I always think about, when people describe me, or if people ask me questions about, what aspect has made me the person that I am, I always go back to parents and family. They set that tone for me. So, I mean, Vaughn's success is a direct correlation to to the parenting, to that experience that you must have gave him as a mom.
Mhm.
I don't know how you teach a kid to drive, in the sense of like being driven. Some people maybe have it genetically in them, but part of it is also, this aspect of the community that you've grown up in, or the house that you grew up in, and the idea of like the value of work, the value of trying to work to succeed at something. So it had to be extremely rewarding for you as well. It had to be, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm very, very, very proud of him and his determination. But I attribute a lot of what happened with Vaughn and for Vaughn. One's timing, right? And so Penn State being down scholarships afforded him the opportunity to have that window opened to go prove himself. And then the other part to that is Vaughn has a lot of grit, and that's not something that you can teach someone, right? You're either born with it or you're not. And when you have grit and you've got your back against the wall and you've got the stamina to kick and scratch and get yourself off the wall, then that's something that Vaughn has. And I guess I attribute some of that. And I appreciate your compliment. And Vaughn did have two parents that loved him very, very much. And so he had that love at home. And so, but Vaughn also grew up in an environment with me as a single parent household, had a dad, Tim, who loved him very much and provided for him. We worked together to raise him. And so certainly wasn't a single parent, I guess. I wasn't a single parent, but Vaughn and I lived. So I think what I mean by bringing all that up is that it wasn't, Vaughn had to want for things, right? He didn't just get things. Like, we had to work for it. And when school clothes shopping came around, he knew that we were headed to the discount rack, right? Like, so Vaughn knew that if he wanted things in life, he had to work for them. He had to go after them. And I think that sometimes, and this is just my personal opinion, and I don't mean to insult anyone, but I think we do our kids a disservice when we use the words, we want our kids to have it better than we did. Because what we've essentially done is taken that piece of, you got to work for it, you got to fight for it. It's okay to want something for a long time before you get it, right? So that's just my personal parenting philosophy, and I don't know if that had any attribution to how Vaughn turned out, but
Well, I think anybody listening to this interview and hearing your story before we even got to talking about this topic would know that, or I would think one of the words that would come to their mind would be driven, determined, and grit for you as well. When we look about, you write in that journal in 2010 or whatever, hey, I want to be or whenever date that was, I want to be a county commissioner someday, and then seeing that through. I mean, that a lot of people would have never stuck it out, and actually gone for it. So, don't sell yourself too short there, Ange. I'm telling you, man.
thanks, Doug. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. And there's been a fascinating conversation, and I'd love to go into the weeds on some of that politics stuff, but I know that that's not the right thing to do here. But we close out all of our conversations with 10 quick questions just to get to know Ange a
Oh
little bit
boy.
better. These are
Oh
going to be great.
boy.
There's
Okay.
nothing weird or anything like that. So just first thing comes to mind, you got it. Here we go. Number one. What's your morning drink of choice?
Black coffee.
Black coffee. Okay. Are you a coffee all day drinker, or is it like I have my morning coffee and then that's it?
2 cups black coffee in the morning.
Okay. All right. Number two. Who is a go-to musical artist or group for you?
Oh man, that's tough because it changes a lot.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my playlist when I walk in the morning. A go-to uh, Fleetwood Mac.
Okay. Good answer. Good answer. Number three. What movie can you watch over and over again and it never gets old?
Oh man, that's another tough question. First thing that comes to mind, Hunger Games.
Oh, okay. All right. What's the last thing that you read?
Oh, The Alchemist.
Okay. How much
Yeah.
how much reading do you have to do for your job? Like, do county commissioners get these like detailed reports? I would imagine you would, probably, that you have to, you said like in order to make an informed vote, you do the work that you need to do. So
Yeah.
how much of your job is reading?
A lot of emails and a lot
Okay.
of attachments in those emails. I have a county code book sitting beside my desk that if I get confused or I need to get more in depth about the county's position and what the counties are supposed to do, I have that book. I don't get a ton of time to read in my personal life just
Yeah.
because of all the meetings and stuff, but I did read The Alchemist recently, and that's a life-changing book. I would
Oh,
recommend
wow.
that to anybody. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Number 5. What's your favorite pizza topping?
Sausage.
Good, good answer. Number 6. Laying on the beach or going for a hike?
Beach.
Okay. 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 Some people will say, "Can I hike to the beach?" I've had that
Yeah,
answer a lot.
that was very hard for me. Yeah.
All
It
right.
depends. Are we hiking up a mountain? If we're hiking up a mountain, then I'm going to the
Good.
beach.
Sounds good. Okay. Number 7. You have invited me over for dinner. What are you cooking?
Oh, breakfast for dinner. We're gonna have
Oh,
like omelets and hash browns and bacon. Yeah,
that
breakfast.
that's good. I like it. I like it. Number 8. What is a dream vacation destination?
Australia.
Ooh, that'd be nice. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Number 9. What is something you're afraid of?
Mm. Failure.
Good answer. Good answer. How about like spiders, mice, snakes, anything like that?
I don't like snakes. I don't particularly like spiders, but I'm not afraid of them. I guess I'm afraid of failure and I'm afraid of disappointing Bond.
Okay. All
Those are
right.
my two things. Yeah.
Okay. Number 10. What job, other than one that you've had, would you love to have?
Oh, that's a good one. So, I've had so many different jobs, and I'm just one of those people, Doug, who's probably never going to do the same thing until retirement. So I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Um, One thing I thought about maybe if I stay in government, trying to take it to the next level.
Oh.
Um, you know, so that's a possibility. Or I really am enamored right now with those folks who go on the speaker circuit
Mm-hmm.
and basically they go to team building events or they
Mm-hmm.
go to some sort of auditorium and they
Yeah.
give a presentation, kind of like a TED talk but the
Yeah.
generic version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think you'd be good at it. Now, this
Thanks.
podcast has been running for 5 years, and I've always asked those 10 questions, never changed from them. But the last couple of weeks, I've really been thinking about asking one more new bonus question. And you are the first guest to get this new
Yes.
bonus question. And I
Okay.
think I think the reason I want to ask this is because of the world that we're living in right now. So from you on out, I'm gonna ask all my guests this bonus question, but you're the first one to get it. Here we go.
Okay.
What brings you joy?
Ah, I mean, what brings me joy? That's a really, really good question. And also, like, I'm trying to answer it as to not be like this selfish person, but I think what brings me joy is feeling like I've done the best that I could possibly do.
There's nothing wrong
That's
with that
that's what
answer.
yeah,
That's
that's
I
what brings me joy.
I don't think that's a selfish answer at all, to be honest.
Mhm.
No. I think,
Thank you.
yeah, my pleasure. And it has been an absolute joy
Well,
for
let
me.
me ask you, what
Yeah.
brings you joy?
Well, when I was thinking about asking this question to people, I was thinking, how would I answer this? And that it's sometimes it's the little things like, man, that first sip of coffee in the morning brings
Oh
me
yeah.
joy. Little things like that bring me a lot of joy. And then it could be the bigger things like seeing my kids succeed at something, or seeing my students in the classroom succeed at something. That brings me joy. But just sitting outside by the campfire brings me joy too. So I was thinking about,
Yeah.
I think we should more often start listing all those times when we feel that sense of this really makes me happy, whatever that is, and telling ourselves, hey, this is happening. This really brings me joy. I think it would do society maybe a good deed for more of us to start thinking that way. But
I
that
agree with you
that's me
100%.
that's me out on cloud nine out there trying to dreamy. But no. All
Seeing
right.
bees brings me joy too, just to
How
be
about I
clear.
know that's good.
I
That's a
love
good answer.
I'm like, bees. Yes, there's still bees.
That's a great answer. That is a great answer. Ange, it has been an absolute pleasure. I want to say thank you for the work that you're doing for the community. It's not easy work. It's to a certain extent thankless work too. So at least hear it from me. Thank you for the work that you do. I wish you all the best and success as the future. And when you run again, or if you run for something else, all the best. I'll sign your petition if you need a signature from me gladly. But
Thank
thanks for
you.
coming on the show and taking time out of your very busy schedule. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on here.
It was such an honor, and I'll come back anytime. Thank you so much for what you do, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you too, Ange. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to Doug's Front Porch, a conversational podcast with your host, Doug Maidenford. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Your ratings and reviews will help others find the show. You can follow along on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Just look for Doug's Front Porch. If you would like to financially support our endeavors, there's a Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. I thank you in advance for any contributions. Please feel free to tell all your friends about the show, and I'll see you all next time on My Front Porch.